it seems we like to dominate. It seems. It seems because in as much as we are encouraged the Bible encourages us to be equal, truth is we usually sort of try to leverage on the weakness of our men. And when I say weakness, the fact that we know they adore us, they love us, they'll go all out for us. Perhaps in terms of personality, they may be calm and everything. I think we try to leverage on that and sometimes take advantage. I don't know if I should call it that way, but this is something that is kind of true, and I think we let it out in our group. We said some of us had actually noticed that is it. We may try to advise for them to implement, but there are times when after advising, we want to implement with them. Like we have to see the outcome together, or we want to make it happen together, you know. But then I also shared something interesting in the group, and it was quite funny because in Africa, in the very rural places, when you get married and of course the man and the woman, if let's say they have upgraded themselves and they know they're supposed to be equal on the same level or enter into a partnership, the extended family member, they most of the times don't see it that way. So for instance, you could be married and if per chance you have your mother-in-law or your sister-in-law come live with you briefly, and let's say your husband happens to come home, supports with washing your undies, for instance, or even a scene cooking, they could actually go to the extent of saying that you have actually bewitched him. Like, is that serious? You know? So we just sort of discussed the element of the external people as well. You know, that is why you're supposed to leave your father and mother and be together so you have the chance to enter that partnership with each other instead of having external voices or extra voices. Like, I think, was it Yasmina? I think it was Yasmina. Yeah, she said, either Yasmina or Kolar, sorry, I didn't remember then. She said they have actually moved far away from their parents, you know, and from external influence. Yes, it was Yasmina, just to also help them build their relationship on their own. Yeah, so that external influence can affect the partnership as well. So it was a point of discussion for us.
Well, Shunko, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, so my conclusion from the discussion is that yes, we like to dominate and be in charge of majority of things, but it works. From what I got from the other ladies, is that it works. The problem starts when outside people get involved, when parents get involved. This is when problem starts. Until then, seems like things are working, even if it's not perfectly functioning as it is in Genesis 1 and 2. It works for the two of them.
Nice. Any other woman wanna share the secret conversation to the men in the room?
I got a question.
Go ahead, Peterson.
So, if you guys like to dominate, if you guys like to dominate, do you prefer to dominate, or do you prefer to have the man step up and take on that role, or do you prefer, like, does that make sense? Is that making sense? No?
To me, it's making
Well, make it make sense. Basically, yeah, do you like having to dominate a man, or would you rather a man, is it less appealing? Is it appealing to you if a man is submissive to you in that way, or is it appealing if a man is more dominant and can step up and challenge your dominating characteristics? Does that make sense?
Yes, such a good question. I love it. Go ahead, ladies.
Go ahead, ladies.
Apenteng, I think you're ready to say something.
I actually think it depends. And I say it depends because, and I say it depends also based on the situation. So, for instance, a lady may want to dominate her husband perhaps in a conversation or in a decision they have to take in terms of probably where they would want to spend their next holiday or vacation. But in terms of, say, for instance, in terms of, if, for instance, you're out with your man and there's someone who's being stubborn, you'd actually expect him to be the one to take that domineering role by giving you some kind of protection. Okay, so when I say it depends here, it's very fluid. It's very fluid. It depends on what the conversation is. It depends on how you're seeing things. And I think I'll just use an example for myself. So, for instance, I recently had an argument with my husband, and it was more of, okay, I think we need something for the house, and he really didn't think it was necessary. As the woman, I think in terms of the beauty of the house, you should leave it to me. In terms of aesthetics, leave it to me. Like, allow me to dominate there, okay? And I didn't see why. I didn't think I needed his opinion there, honestly, because it has to do with the house looking good, and I need to take care of that. Don't come in. Like, if it comes to stuff like school fees and stuff, like, dominate there. I don't care which school you decide to take your daughter to because you're the one going to pay. So I think it's very fluid and situational, and so it depends.
Nice. Anybody else want to answer, Peterson?
I want to point out that it's not a complete full domination. I don't think we meant that when we discussed it. It's more of what I understood is like a battle between two strong people, but not like a bad battle, but it's like presenting yourself, but leading more. But what I'm trying to say is not dominating over a weak or a fully submissive person. It's more of on the equal, when people are equal, because I don't remember who. I think Appending you mentioned talking about like equal education and stuff like that.
Okay, that's it. Shumko. I think Hao has a question, wants to add. Go ahead, Hao.
Well, I don't know if it's a question, but I guess, my experience is the most attractive, the most wonderful, the sexiest thing is when someone has power and then gives it to the other person. It's kind of this dynamic of give, 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 give. And if you look at it, this is actually Jesus' approach to stuff. He gives, 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 gives everything. But then if you look in the book of Revelation, what happens? Jesus gets a ton more power. Like, that's the main point of the book of Revelation. More and more and more and more power because he gave everything up. So what really works here is if both sides have more and more and more power and give up more and more and more power. And it's the sort of thing where the act of submitting or the act of laying aside the power actually creates more power and more power and more power and more and more and more and more. And so that's why both sides need to be dominant, need to be strong. And it's that act of constantly giving it up, constantly sacrificing that actually gives more and more and more and more power. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Paulinian, right? The true leadership is to surrender, right? In a sense. Yeah, I like that. You guys are making interesting observations. What I would say to you, Peterson, is that personally, I like the man to have the executive power, but I want to know that I have a path to his heart. In other words, I want to know that I have access, that he's listening to me, right? If I feel that he's listening to me and incorporating what I'm saying into his decisions, I'm quite satisfied to let him lead, right? So I want to have an access to the secret chambers. I want to have access to his ears. Yeah, so if I feel heard personally, I can let him. But on the other hand, I agree with Apenteng. In the home, like I am in, don't you go buying the furniture, I got it. Right? I don't like somebody to interfere with my decorations because I need to feel at home, right? And if you start bringing in your stuff, so yeah, in that sense I agree. So yeah, I mean, I think what we're learning a lot in the class is that every relationship has its own dynamic, right? And you kind of have to negotiate this with your spouse, right? Your future spouse, because ultimately she's the instrument you will be playing, right? You have to figure out what kind of dynamic to have with her, knowing that flexibility will be needed in terms of, anytime you enter into a marriage, right, you have certain view of what the right thing is, and inevitably the other will cause you to have to expand those views, right? I think if you're ready to come in with a willingness to expand or to upgrade, it's going to go very well. The woman will inevitably require an upgrade. Let's put it like that. Anytime the woman will enter your life, you will be required to upgrade your system of values. And the willingness to do that is going to determine the quality of your relationship. Does that make sense, Peterson? Where is Peterson?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
You're funny. Okay. Okay, let's move into the environment. Let me stop the recording. Unless the ladies wanted to hear a little bit what the men talked about. You guys are interested in seeing what they were talking about? Shall we have a little time for the men to share their secrets with us? Go ahead, whoever feels like they have something to say. Silence.
I'm interested to know what Cole and them said over there in the group, whatever group they were in.
All right, Cole, you're up. Go ahead, Cole.
I want to hear what you said, Ryan, first.
All right, so Peterson and Cole are up.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Then you go first.
This is the conflict.
Well, I thought in my group, Hal said some good stuff. I don't want to butcher what he said. So if Hal wants to share.
All right, we're delegating to Hal. Go ahead, Hal.
No, but one thing I will say though is I really like what you said about the ancient kings and the advisory thing. But I was wondering if that would fall under Genesis 1 or Genesis 3. Yeah.
Yes. You know what? I think it falls under Genesis 3 in the way that I'm interpreting it. I'm referring you shamelessly to my article. I think it falls more under the way I'm reading Genesis 3. Yeah, it doesn't fall under, I mean, Genesis 2, maybe the woman is the Ezer Kenegdo, so she has some knowledge, she has some divine attribute, and in that sense, her words are wise, right? And in that sense, it is beneficial to the man to listen to the woman's words because she has that divine attribute of Ezer, right? So maybe Genesis 2 also would work there, I think. Yeah. How? You have been invited to speak.
I think, we had a really special group, and we kind of indirectly or directly confess to each other that we don't really know what we're doing in this space. And that the context or the country in which we find ourselves in and the people we marry, the children we have, the needs of those children. So many different factors really influence where we find ourselves on a particular issue. It also seems that while we recognize some regressions from the Genesis 1 scenario in the world in which we find ourselves, we want our children to be more back to the Genesis 1 model. We want our sons and daughters to grow up seeing men and women as equally valuable before God, having roles that are equally important, whatever that means. But we noted that culture does play a big role in that, and that somehow we find ourselves a little bit lost and at sea sometimes, without a lot of clarity. There are many competing voices clamoring for attention. Sometimes those are relatives, like the ladies mentioned. Other times it's the whole culture of where we live. So I think we kind of want to do the right thing. We don't always know how.
Great. Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like the not knowing that you don't know, right? This is the beginning of wisdom, according to Socrates. So now, Peterson, you're up.
That was
Oh,
that was my up when I.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, Cole, your turn.
Cool.
Oh.
So in our group, we're fortunate to have somebody who had 26 years of marriage. So I think there's a lot of experience in there to stay married for 26 years. But I think what we have contributed or what we have talked so far was that it's marriage is more of a partnership, or it's a partnership between two persons with different attitude and views in life. But because it's a partnership, then both has to navigate marriage together. And yeah, what else? And in cases where there are disagreement, the husbands usually would not differ, but would see the perspective of the wife at first. Let them sleep, and then tomorrow is another day. And then in depends on the expertise. In, say, like in my case, when it comes to money, finances, there are times when I have to defer to my wife, but my being a finance director like dominates. Yeah, but it's really a partnership because but the wives recognizes in one case the like the wives recognizes the husband being the head of the family, and in this is true in the cases in countries where it's patriarchal. The laws have recognized that as well. Benefits have been given to head of the families, which are husband men, and it's quite difficult for women to get the same benefits. So it's changing, but say in the Philippines, for example, because we got two women presidents that has empowered a lot of women to stand for themselves and to take up um leadership roles, including in the family. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, great. Great summary of the discussion.